What's a job that you just associate with jerks? This is indeed a fact in a lot of cases, but having been in the biz almost 20 years now, it ain't how it used to be. You attract more bees with honey than you do with vinegar. It's much easier to close deals and get what you want when you're easy to work with, but in my experience, the bigger the jerk, the lower profile the talent is. I bet that the reason the careers of certain promising actors fizzled out and they never reached the heights of fame they could have is because of jerky or bitchy behavior. There's always someone coming up behind you who's just as talented and attractive and who doesn't bring the baggage of being a nightmare to deal with. That's a winning bet, my friend. Time is money, and if you're wasting both, you start falling off consideration lists fast. Especially with social media these days, word spreads fast to fans and potential employers. Even those at the top of their game know what's up. Beyoncé is known to always be on time and very professional. And even Beyoncé lost out on a gig because she didn't follow the breakdown. She really wanted Tiana in The Princess and the Frog. Her agent told production she was interested, assuming they would jump at the chance to cast her. Instead, they sent over the audition breakdown because they were having everyone actually submit an audition, not just anointing a big star with the role. She sent them some generic demo tape instead of the materials they had asked for. Got herself taken straight off the short list. Yeah, it's a whole industry of jerks. I've heard of agents that barely even got clients' auditions, so if you are getting them, that's a good sign on you. A lot of work needs to be done to the whole infrastructure. I hope by the time I retire, I will have made a positive impact on the projects and folks I've worked with. And it usually works out that nice boys that weren't a complete twat became one simply because they worked on the rigs. I knew sweet boys that became awful. Poisoned men. The conditions, the pay, the food, the suck up or fuck off attitude. It turns good boys into self-centered men and assholes partners. It always broke my heart seeing it happen. Frown. It's true, there's a very toxic mentality, especially in the older generation coming from the workforce in areas like this. I'm in the trade industry and it definitely forced me to toughen up. A lot of good kids coming into the workforce are left with no option than to change, otherwise they suffer a torment you wouldn't believe. And I see this abuse happen more from foremans, supervisors or any higher official, as they tend to assert their authority and put these young people in a place that makes them feel unappreciated and inadequate. It's slowly changing though, and these are the people they should be able to rely on the most. The older generation is starting to dissolve now, and as they retire and workforce laws are tightened with more consequences, it is starting to get better, which is very slowly making the work culture healthier and young men are more open and understanding to each other. Unfortunately, it only takes one to ruin it. I am hoping one day I will get to a position where I can help give young apprentices more courage and strength to speak up, to help them learn about their rights and entitlements within the workforce, to be a backbone to them when they are being treated unfairly, and hopefully start to see the changes it desperately needs. There's a video of a dude online who just chases Sacha Baron Cohen around with a camera asking him a ton of questions and gets no response, not even a look. So he titled the video "Sacha Baron Cohen is an asshole" or something like that. He was just going about his business. He doesn't want a camera shoved in his face. Even some fans have the "I saw your movie, you owe me insert whatever here" ridiculous. Radcliffe said it in an interview and it appears to be true. Radcliffe's strategy was to make the paparazzi photos worthless on the tabloid market, quoting a later publication summary. But the most effortless way to stymie the paparazzi, Daniel Radcliffe found during his 2007 performance in Equus, was to make sure photos of him were as boring as possible. The paparazzi waiting for him outside the theater after the play could never get a usable shot, because he was always in the same outfit. I would wear the same jacket and zip it up so they couldn't see what I was wearing underneath, and the same hat, he told Jay Leno in an interview on The Tonight Show. As a result, Every photo looked like it had been taken on the same day, and the photographers couldn't sell them. They became unpublishable, which was hilarious because there's nothing better than seeing the paparazzi get really frustrated. He told Leno. He kept up the habit for the entire run of the play. Source. That's interesting. Paparazzi culture is so fucking weird to me. One positive aspect of social media is that celebrities can easily provide access to whatever they want, so this particular type of tabloid shite seems to be on the decline. I wonder if the baseball cap plus sunglasses plus surgical mask combo would also help in Radcliffe's scenario. I forget what actress it was, but she was surrounded by paparazzi and one of those dickheads kept intentionally hitting her arm, and when she finally pushed back they all started snapping photos like crazy. He was trying to goad her into a reaction to make her look like an asshole. They are the fucking worst. This randomly reminds me of that one time the Pope hit a lady and there were a bunch of hilarious headlines. But then if you watch the video, that bitch totally had it coming and it was her that was being an asshole trying to yank him around. He was just swatting at her to get her to let go. Edit. It was less dramatic than I remembered. https://2.b/3wayswhj2swu. Was gonna say this. They literally make their livelihood off of catching celebrities at their shittiest, most vulnerable moments. The recent Britney Spears documentary highlights one of the most extreme examples of this, aka the whole umbrella incident during her highly publicized breakdown in 2007. As if she wasn't having a hard enough time already, she then had to deal with a bunch of dickheads with cameras trying to snap a $1,000 photo. They're all fucking scum and I honestly don't know how they sleep at night. I wonder if she even would have had a breakdown without the paparazzi. I had a stalker when I was about Britney's age at the time of her crisis, and I thought it really would drive me insane. I struggled to eat, to sleep, I got jumpy and paranoid and seriously questioned my own sanity. Then add in a baby, the hormones, physical recovery, lack of sleep, and you don't just have one stalker but dozens. A breakdown is well within the bounds of a normal human response. I worked as a valet attendant for a hotel that hosted celebrities in Miami, and I had the displeasure of talking to a lot of paparazzi, the creepiest fucking people I have ever spoken with. The things they would attempt just to get a picture were absolutely insane. I saw a guy try to tackle headfirst multiple security guards while screaming, "If you touch me I'll sue you motherfuckers," with a camera in his hand trying to get a picture of Lance Armstrong. They are literally scum. I don't understand how that line of work is legal in this country. Yeah, because they often sell their photos to publications like People magazine and TMZ, which are technically news sources. It's tough to stop paparazzi without also diminishing freedom of the press. It's disgusting, because a picture of a movie star running out to grab a coffee while wearing old sweatpants and a t-shirt is not news. Hollywood doesn't want it to be illegal. They manufacture fame. They create excuses to talk about stars, even when they aren't doing anything noteworthy. They reveal personal facts about people that foster a false sense of closeness with the stars. There were times when celebrities paid them to come around and staged scenes. It's become self-perpetuating and out of control since then. But even now Hollywood depends upon these guys to manufacture the petty drama that builds and maintains stardom. Yeah, during their studies, they are being told again and again how they are the most important and skilled people in the world. Then, they work in the field that brings in the most money to the hospital, so the hospital directors will try to never upset them so they don't leave to another place. But I worked in IT, and several times I've had to explain to surgeons that no, I cannot simply do a select altogether all the data of all the past surgeries of their hospital. The said sociopaths think they master every field where they barely have any knowledge. I have not seen numbers this high, but surgeon is the 5th most common profession of psychopaths. That, however, is overloaded with teaching hospital surgeons, who score significantly higher than surgeons in most practices. I have worked and been a surgeon since the early 1980s and have seen my share. Stress tolerance is a significant part of training, which also causes overrepresentation. Medical schools reportedly are trying to admit more students high in empathy, so we will see if these numbers change. Oh, you're getting me started here. A family doc, an internist, a surgeon and a pathologist go duck hunting. They come across the first duck flying out of a bush. The family doc raises his shotgun and says, "Looks like a duck, flies like a duck, must be a duck," and takes the shot, bags himself a duck. Next duck flies out and the internist raises his shotgun, "Looks like a duck, flies like a duck. Rule out quail, rule out pheasant. Goose versus duck most likely." Takes the shot and gets himself a duck. Next a whole flock of ducks fly out and the surgeon raises his shotgun and empties the whole fucking thing. Blood and feathers everywhere. When all the carcasses have hit the ground, he turns to the pathologist and slaps him on the back and says, "Hey, go tell me that one of those is a duck." And they lie, letting you know casually that they are a surgeon and not a regular peasant doctor. Little personal story: once swapped a surgeon's monitors from left to right to temporarily resolve a UI bug in the software he was using. Got yelled at for about a minute, complete with cursing. Politely offered to move it back and proceeded to do so since he didn't stop yelling. Another minute or so later he got particularly nasty with his insults. So I left his monitor disconnected and asked him to call me when he was ready to behave like an adult. Then I walked out of the room. Took him a while to realize he couldn't complain to anyone because I was entirely in the right, which is saying something because doctors have a huge amount of influence in most hospitals. But he said some pretty nasty stuff, loudly, with witnesses. Any normal person wouldn't have taken most of the day to swallow their pride. I also knew I was the only person in the hospital who understood the problem he was having and could fix it. The UI issue, not just a matter of hooking the monitor back up. Surgeon here. For everyone saying yeah, I wouldn't mind having an overconfident sociopath work on me, trust me. You do. The cocky surgeons are the ones who take the biggest risks and feel the least amount of empathy when considering the potential consequences. Not to mention they crush the morale of their support team, which can often psych them out at critical moments. My talent comes from years hard work, not unearned arrogance. And more importantly, I am comfortable enough with my own fallibility to double, triple check instead of just rolling the dice. Not controlling your ego is what gets people hurt and makes for a miserable work environment for everyone else around you. It's a shame that surgeons are associated with being jerks, and it's an even bigger shame that most of them deserve it. Your comment reminds me of the gynecologist I worked for who would treat some pelvic prolapses with obliterative surgery. If the patient was postmenopausal, he would routinely fail to check if she was still sexually active, or tell her that sex would be impossible after having removed half of her vagina. I diverted a few ladies, including a couple aged 80+, at the pre-op assessment appointment after establishing that their prolapses weren't bothering them as nearly much as the loss of their sex lives would. Then I would get it in the neck from him later for daring to disagree. Worked for a dozen or so gyns in my career. I'd say about a third were too sociopathic to be safe doing it. I worked in pathology/lab for a hospital. Surgeons are some of the most bizarre critters you will ever meet. They would call and demand to know why results for a test they ordered were not in. 1. Bacteria takes time to grow, and 2. The nurse/tech/LPN has not sent/brought/drawn the samples yet. Therefore I cannot give you results for samples I don't have. They didn't get it. Oh, I've heard it all. Can you turn the incubator up to make it grow faster? What are the sensitivities? Me. It was no growth. Him. But what antibiotics is it sensitive to? A particularly irate doctor demanding results for a sample we hadn't received and hadn't been informed about. His angry response: well, the next time you don't receive samples from me, please phone me and tell me. Number. Yeah, my co-worker's husband was a pretty successful car salesman and made a good amount of money, but it was a f-hole for his mental health. He finally called it quits and my co-worker got to have a house husband for a while. She loved having less to do when she was exhausted after work. Even now he got a job at the post office because that's all he needs and it's something he actually enjoys. As an extra benefit he is still home more and is able to keep doing extra stuff around the house for her. Post office sounds sweet after most of the shit I've done. Is it like 80% mindless repetition with the other 20% being some interaction with the public and or co-workers to break up the day? That seems like the right ratio. Basically that's what fish cannery work was like, but it didn't pay anything. Edit. I work in IT. I'm just burned out. Yeah, and it's a medical emergency that could lead to peritonitis. You don't have the luxury of going through your provider directory to find an approved MD when every minute counts. She ought to call the consumer reporter at some TV station to report on it. Chances are the insurers would rather pony up the payment than get bad media coverage for something like this. I'd argue a burst appendix is life-threatening. Not a medical expert, but I'm pretty sure when it's life-threatening insurance is supposed to step in and act like where you went was in network no matter what. Of course they'll probably argue it wasn't life-threatening. You should have spent hours driving back to your town or bought a plane ticket and ruined the rest of your life with irreversible damage. But you would have lived. Hopefully you can get fair coverage from the service you pay for. Head chef. I made it to Sue's before leaving traditional kitchen work. They're all fucking miserable unless they own the place and are so rich they can just pay someone else to do the work. The executive chef at my last gig, owner, liked to show up to manager meetings in a car that costs $200,000. I couldn't convince the people in charge of payroll that the reason we couldn't find and retain decent prep cooks was the fact that they paid minimum wage. Also finance brothers, they're all douchebags. I have worked in kitchens for 10 years and have met only 2 solid head chefs. One was a female who was a whiz at the craft, and another is my current head chef who also owns the restaurant. He is a great guy and rarely gets angry. You know you're a good head chef if you get invited to kitchen parties and whatnot. When staff can be comfortable around you outside of work, it's what head chefs should strive for. Oh God, was an MMFK noodle bar at a counter seat and he was absolutely cussing out a sous chef for not knowing how to cook fish right in front of me. It was incredibly uncomfortable sitting there trying to enjoy a meal when 4 feet in front of me was David Chang demonstrating, shoutily and condescendingly, how to pan fry some fish to a sullen dude. I get that maybe the dude was shit and didn't listen before, but berating him literally within spitting distance of your guests is so unprofessional. Worked in a deli at a grocery store where mommy and daddy's 2 kids worked there. Both of them had a history of drug abuse, but the daughter had a significantly better attitude than the son. He had the audacity to say I should be wearing my paper hat and my tie should be tighter and shirt tucked in on my break. I looked at him, told him to shove it, and he said, "Do you even know who I am?" I laughed at him, and told him if he was intelligent enough to have a say then they would have given him a supervisor position. He tried to give me a speech on my break, so I definitely told him I was going to be taking a longer break on account of him taking it up with his douchebaggery. Don't let those people walk all over you. Mommy and daddy aren't gonna keep them in charge if they run off all of the employees. I watched this one. So glad I found a comment about it. It's sad how one of them already has an anxiety problem which is made worse by the continuous refreshing and counting. The influencer trip to the desert was hilarious and eye-opening on how miserable the whole thing really is, while they make that life seem so glamorous. I've had debt collectors calling my work phone for 6 years now. For the last guy who had the phone number, gee, wonder why he changed it. Tried to explain to them a whole bunch of times that Michael's not here. Michael gone. Don't know Michael. I have no interest in what happens to his credit score. And surprisingly, I have no number I can give them for this Michael I have never met or dealt with in my life. The calls had dwindled to just once every week or so now. One of the regulars is sure I am Michael, and one of these days she'll catch me out. Likes to say hi Michael. Like someone talking to a friend when I answer.